Welcome to this absolutely beautiful ceremony space where we are honoured to be celebrating the life of your beautiful mum, mother-in-law, nana, sister, aunt, cousin and friend, Thelma Smith. On behalf of Thel's heartbroken family, I'd really like to thank all of you for being here today to help them celebrate their amazing mum's life and, of course, to support them at this most difficult of times. A special welcome to those joining us via the live stream. We know that your love and thoughts would be with us here today as we reflect, remember and celebrate on Thel's very long and truly worthy life. A special welcome, unfortunately, to her sister Lois, who is unable to be here due to family circumstances, and that's really disappointing, but hopefully you get to watch this, Lois, a little bit later on in the day or tomorrow. So we're thinking of you for sure. Just as we begin though, I know that Brian has asked people to turn their phones off, but please double check if you haven't already that your phone is turned to off or silent, because it is very easy to sort of just forget and be distracted at times like this. And also the memorial book, that's a really important one as well. If you haven't signed it, please do so before you leave, because it's just a really lovely memento for the family to have, as well as being a gentle reminder of who was here sharing in this day with them and being here to support them. And of course, after the service, the family would be absolutely delighted if you join them for some light refreshments at the Navy Club in Newtown. If you're not sure where it is, just ask someone and we'll direct you. This is another thing. Honestly, I urge you to come and join us for this, even if it's just for a short time, because it is in the sharing of those stories and memories in just a more relaxed and informal setting that definitely helps the healing process for the family. Now, to commence our ceremony today, we're going to start with a candle lighting for the family to symbolise the way in which Thelma's life was filled with light and love. You know, the light of a candle represents so many things, obviously light and love and celebration and remembrance, both of which are at the very core of why we are here today. So as the music commences, Wayne, would you like to start?
They asked me how I knew my true love was true. I of course replied, something here inside cannot be denied. They said someday you'll find all who love are blind. When your heart's on fire, you must realize smoke gets in your eyes. So I chaffed them and I gaily laughed to think they could doubt my love. Yet today my love has flown away. I am without my love. Without my love. Now laughing friends deride tears I cannot hide. So I smile and say, when a lovely flame dies, smoke gets in your eyes.
Thanks so much, everyone. How absolutely beautiful does that look? And hopefully, in the difficult times ahead, perhaps, the lighting of a candle might just help you feel close to today and help you feel a little closer to your beautiful Thel, and perhaps bring a little bit of peace and solace to your aching hearts. So how do we sum up the life of someone like Thelma, who has led such an amazing life, and she's meant so much to so many of you over such a long period of time, in under an hour? It's an impossible task, I've got to tell you, but that's what we're charged with doing at the end of a person's life, as a way of paying homage to their legacy and simply acknowledging that amazingly well-lived life. And where best to start? Well, at the very beginning. She was born Thelma O'Keefe on the 9th of December 1925 at 79 Elizabeth Street, West Geelong. Now, at that time, her parents, Richard and Winifred O'Keefe, née Herbert, were renting this house while they were building their own nearby in John Street. Her father, of course, being a builder by trade, was building the house himself on land that he obtained through the war services. And when Thelma was only 6 weeks old, they moved into the partially completed new house. Thel was actually the fourth of their 8 children, with the others being older siblings, Winnie, Irene and Richard, followed by the younger ones, John, Michael, Gwen and Lois. And with the exception of Lois, all others have predeceased Thelma. And we know that had Lois been here today, even if she's not, it's still a very difficult day for her, being the last remaining sibling. They're often the forgotten mourners at a funeral, to be honest, and so just like Lois, to know that our love and thoughts are with her as well today. Now, it won't surprise any of you to hear that Thelma was, by all accounts, a strong-minded child from an early age, and she definitely kept her parents on their toes. So she began her schooling at nearby St Patrick's. Her stay there wasn't long, though. An incident occurred whereby the class were all sitting on a long seat, and suddenly a locker was dislodged, resulting in many of the children being tipped off the seat. And the nun in charge blamed Thelma, and as punishment, she locked her in a cupboard. Thelma always maintained, by the way, that she was framed. When his young daughter didn't come home after school, Dick set off there to find where she was. Well, as you can imagine, he was not one bit impressed at her being left in a cupboard and totally forgotten about. This, on top of some unpaid money that the school owed him for work that he'd done, because it was the Depression, money was pretty scarce, it led him to take all but one of his children out of the school and send them to nearby Ashby State School. Winnie, being the eldest and nearing the end of her education, was permitted to stay. Thelma loved dancing all her life, and as a child she attended a ballet school run by Miss Hampton on High Street, now Lawton Avenue. Later she attended Mademoiselle Ivy, who was a former member of the Ziegfeld Follies. That's probably doesn't mean much to you young ones, but that's pretty impressive. Irene and Winnie were also dancers, and their brother Jackie, that's John, played piano, and Dickie, Michael, he was a boxer. And Dickie was another one who knew his own mind, ran away to sea when he was 16 on a ship bound for Tasmania. And the police told his parents to leave him, and, they felt that he would learn a valuable lesson. Well, he didn't, and he ended up in the Navy. In fact, he continued to sail on ships even after leaving the Navy for the rest of his life, so he did know his own mind. Thel left school in grade 8 at the age of 14, and at this time she went to live with her sister Winnie and her husband Jim, who was working on the railways in Camperdown. She only stayed with them for 12 months, and when she came home she found a job in a mixed business on Shannon Avenue. However, this too, like her time at St Pat's, was to be short-lived, once again due to her father's intervention. On this occasion, Dick arrived at the shop to speak to his daughter, only to find out that she was out the back washing dishes. Well, he declared to the owner in no uncertain terms that no daughter of his was going to be washing dishes, and there was no way, because that's not what she was employed for. He was a clever man, Dick, wasn't he? He knew all about job prescriptions long before the term was ever invented. He then put Thelma's name down for the PMG, since he was working there, and that's what it was known by then. And family members of an employee were given preference. That's still the case now, even though that it's Australia Post. Thel was 16 by this stage, and so she began her training, unpaid, at the Geelong Telephone Exchange, which was near the present Geelong Art Gallery. After her training, she had to sit for an exam in Cressy, which of course she passed and promptly got the job. And she was at that Geelong Telephone Exchange for 2.5 years. She only left because there was someone working in Melbourne who was desperate to move, and so Thelma offered to swap jobs with them. Now, the idea was that Thelma would come to Melbourne and board in a boarding house, a hostel in Lonsdale Street. But when she got there was actually no accommodation available for her. So she resigned from the PMG and sought alternate employment through an employment agency. Now, it was while she was in this employment agency that she spied a poster on the wall seeking women for the Army in AWOS, which was the Australian Women's Army Service. Well, she returned home very excited with this news, and enrolment form, enlistment form in hand, and had to be signed by her father. The reception she got wasn't quite what she had really been hoping for, because Dick point blank refused to sign it. But as you would all know far better than I, Thelma wasn't going to give in. She eventually wore her father down, whereupon he reluctantly relented and signed on the dotted line. The next day, she rode his bike up to the drill hall to submit the papers. Her dad, again, not happy. Within 6 days, she got her call up and had to report to Royal Park. She was in the army now. Her training was done at Bacchus Marsh, and during this time, she missed her sister's Irene's wedding, as the army wouldn't give her the time off. After her training, she was posted to Bandiana and worked in the transport company. It was while she was at Bandiana that Dick became ill. So the army, who must have developed a heart by this stage, posted her closer to home at Broadmeadows, where she remained until her discharge in 1945. But of course, it was during this time that she met the man who was to become her husband and, of course, father to her children, Clarence Albert Smith, known as Bob. That's a long story, we won't go into that. As it happened, they had been pretty much neighbours, because Thelma's home in John Street was just around the corner from his. And on top of that, there was a little corner shop across the road where one of Thelma's girlfriends also lived. And this particular girl had her eye on Bob, and he was in the Navy and obviously looked the part. So, like the good friend that she was, Thel ignored him whenever they crossed paths. Despite this, he must have had a keen eye for her, because shortly after, he invited Thelma out for a dance. And that was their first date at the Palais, which really makes me laugh because Bob couldn't dance. And so Thelma had to dance with every other bloke in the place other than Bob. I guess he thought that was a good way to get her out. She wouldn't say no to a dance. He was so dead set keen to marry Thelma, but because she'd been busy in the army, she never had the time to get her glory box together. If you don't know what a glory box is, we'll explain later. But this wasn't going to deter Bob. Oh no, he went out and got her a glory box himself, hoping that this would hurry her along. Well, it must have done the trick, because soon after they did become engaged. They were both still in the forces at this stage. Bob was up at Shoalhaven in Nowra and Thelma still at Broadmeadows. But in 1945, Thelma was discharged and returned home. She worked in a few different odd jobs until her wedding, which took place on the 14th of December 1945 at St Peter's and Paul's Church in Mercer Street, Geelong, after which they honeymooned in Lakes Entrance. Following the honeymoon, they returned to Geelong, but they were forced to live with Bob's parents because housing in that post-war era was in very short supply. Bob returned to Ford, where he had been working before the war, and he was there for a short time before also joining the PMG with, of course, his father-in-law's encouragement, good conditions and permanency were Dick's words, and that got him then. In the meantime, they'd started their family with first the birth of Wayne in 1947, and in 1950 they bought a small home in Wellington Street, West Geelong. It was £500 and they sold it 4 years later for £2,500 so that Bob could take up a promotion in Brisbane. And it was while they were here that they very willingly welcomed their beautiful baby girl, Gail. The move away from Geelong up to Queensland was a pretty traumatic one for Thelma, leaving family and friends, but she took it in her stride and settled into a 4-year stint up there. However, those years in Sherwood in Brisbane were really good ones for the family. Wayne recalled that, regular weekend trips to the Sunshine Coast and to the just then developing Gold Coast, attending open-air theatre on Wednesday nights and also travelling into the city on a steam train for some shopping excursions. They all provided heaps of fun and some great memories, and Wayne was given a lot of freedom by his mum in those days and he really loved it. And of course around this time, Bob lashed out and he bought a brand new radiogram. That's like a record player and radio all in one. That was very snazzy back then. And Thelma made tremendous use of that. And in so doing, she was able to pass on her love of music to Wayne. And she bought him heaps of records and he played them endlessly. The family then moved back to Geelong following Bob's mother's sudden death in 1958. And that's when their family was made complete with the arrival of their little surprise packet, Grant, in 1961. They then stayed with Bob's father, looking after him in his older years in that family home in Elizabeth Street until his subsequent passing in 1970. Thelma and Bob continued to make their home from then on. When Grant, the youngest child, began school, Thelma got a job at the TAB and Bob bought her a little Mini to travel to work in, and she drove it like a racing car. Bob gave her many lectures about braking, revving the engine and riding the clutch, but all to no avail. She kept him busy practising his mechanical skills, and we're going to hear a little bit more about Thel and her car adventures shortly from the grandchildren. During these years, Thelma and Bob had a terrific group of close friends who enjoyed an often hectic social life. On many weekends during the year, they'd take turns visiting each other's houses where they'd play cards, told stories and have a few ales. Thel, though, was not a drinker. She was the one exception to the having a glass of alcohol. She really couldn't stand the taste, a weak masala being the exception, and she pretty much remained a teetotaler her whole life. But it certainly didn't stop her from having fun. In 1985, though, Bob developed a form of brain cancer and his decline was rapid, dying in July of that same year. Thel's strength and resilience enabled her to cope better than probably what would have normally been expected. She was a very independent person and coped well living alone. And really her love for family was the thing that distracted her from her own personal loss. She fashioned her life around her grandchildren and then later the great-grandchildren. Nana's house was a very welcoming place. And if you were a child, it was a place where most of your dreams had a good chance of coming true. Thelma also loved travelling and went on many adventures with her sisters to Japan, England, Ireland and Norfolk Island. And with Wayne, Michelle and Gail, she went to France as well as to the jungles of Malaysia and Indonesia, seeking out orangutans and rare giant flowers with Gail and Tegan. Would you believe that she celebrated her 80th birthday in Malaysia, Penang, Malaysia? Honestly, there was no stopping this girl. And of course, her love of shopping was legendary. She loved a bargain and was always keen to snap one up. Let's face it, her house was well stocked with these so-called bargains, many of which she had absolutely no use for, but they were just too good a bargain to not invest in. In Thel's last years, she realised the need to leave her beloved Geelong and the family home and move to Numurkah to be closer to Gail, Wayne and Michelle. You know, she never complained, but you could tell that she missed zipping out in her little car to pick up a bargain or visit rallies or her few close remaining friends. And her memory was beginning to falter, and she accepted her move to the aged care facility, where she absolutely delighted the staff with her still intact and quick sense of humour. As time passed, interestingly, in her mind, she had returned to Geelong, her happy place. But you know what? She never became confused about her children or her grandchildren. She remembered and loved each and every one of them to the very end. What a remarkably full and interesting life she led. And through it all, you know, she has left an amazing legacy, and that's you, her beautiful family, Wayne and Michelle, Grant and Gail, and her former daughter-in-law and friend Samara, her adored grandchildren, Adam, David, Josh, Tegan and Darcy, not forgetting your supportive partners, Rebecca, Melissa, Maker and Greta, and last but by no means least, her adorable great-grandchildren, Taja, Cohen, Macy, Isla, Max, Harriet and Maeve, as you are, without a shadow of a doubt, her greatest achievement. And whenever you hear yourself saying something or doing something or even just thinking something that reminds you of her, you'll know she'll never be gone, while there is one single one of you left to remember her and carry her in your heart. So let this be of some little comfort to you. That's a fabulous life story, isn't it? Very much truncated, but thanks, Wayne, for putting that all together. But now we're going to hear some memories and stories from some of the others who knew and loved Thel best. Firstly, we'll hear from the grandchildren, and they will be followed by a short tribute from her niece, Deb, who's going to speak on behalf of Arnie Lowe, and then followed by a poem, and after which we will be treated to a bit of a snapshot of Thel's life in pictures. But for now, boys and Tegan, would you like to come up and join me? You're on your own, mate.
I am. I'm on my own. I'm just going to read for Adam, David and myself, and I'll start with Adam. As I stop and reflect on my memories with Nan, I grin with an internal laughter that complements the many great times I had with her. I'm not great with words, but I'll do my best to express one of my favourite memories of Nan. School holidays nearly always meant a visit to Nan's house, something I loved doing. It was religious in fashion that I would always be up there before the sun, that I'd be always up before the sun came up, ready for my early dose of cartoons, Scooby-Doo, Casper, Thunderbirds, wacky races. Here, I would sit in front of the gas heater until Nan woke up. Nan wasn't overly keen on getting up too early, so once Nan was up, she would always cook me eggs on toast, which would be mashed up especially so the yellow and white pieces were mixed evenly. To this very day, I think about Nan every time I have egg on toast, as I grab my knife and fork and dice up a sunny side up egg into 1,000 pieces. One of Nan's favourite things to do was to go shopping. And that was our favourite thing to do because Nan loved shopping for toys. Transformers, Star Wars figurines, Hot Wheel cars. With endless orange tracks, we ran up from the kitchen table into the lounge, packets of green army soldiers strategically placed all over the place in battle, and even those toy guns with the suction caps that we would shoot everything with. We'd turn the place upside down, but Nan would always be watching us with a smile, just enjoying our laughter and fun. The Blue Mini, Nan's highly recommended and approved mode of transport. This thing was literally like dragging your bum on the road. It was that low to the ground and it had a steering wheel befitting of a truck that Nan could only just see over. This machine used to take us on our shopping jaunts down to Gales at Jan Juck for beach time and off to the water slides at Corio Pool. For us grandkids, this blue Mini was as good as a theme park ride, with Nan always taking us into Geelong through the Burham Street tunnel, under the railroad tracks, beeping the horn repeatedly as we laughed and clapped for more. Onlookers would not have been mistaken for thinking Nan had a carload of special needs children with her. Funnily enough, Nan would just laugh as hard as us with our excitement. I only have a few memories of when Grandpa was around with Nan, and most of them were when he was unwell. One thing Grandpa left Nan with when he passed away was his version of the ultimate family security system. This came in the form of a dog named Piggy. For those who knew this dog, you will appreciate when I say how truly unique this dog was. He could eat large cans of dog food in less than 3 seconds, destroy an unprecedented number of cricket balls and footballs, climb trees to bark at people over the 6-foot fence on Elizabeth Street, and even attempt to rip exhaust pipes off cars when they were running. On one occasion, the dog stopped breathing from exhaust gas asphyxiation, which saw Grandpa having to revive it with mouth-to-mouth. As mad as Piggy was, he would always listen to Nan, and she loved him, and so did we. Another thing Nan did a lot of was drinking a lot of cups of tea. I'm confident that Lipton owes their success to Nan and her unreserved thirst for a good cup of tea. Nan always had an endless supply of rum balls without the rum, egg and lettuce sandwiches for lunch, and a freezer fully loaded with ice cream wafers. Yep, Nan was way better than being home with Mum and Dad. We will miss and always remember you. Adam, Beck, Taja and Cohen. All right. This is from Davo. When I was little and school holidays approached, I felt a feeling overcome me, knowing I'd soon be at Nan's house with all the freedom, lollies, movies, in fact everything a kid loves endlessly on tap. It wouldn't take me long to go into full grandkid mode, eating lollies for breakfast, staying up late watching movies, and most importantly, not have to do any chores. After about 2 days at Nan's, I would have the biggest Nana fix a kid could have. I still remember Nana's words, "Davo, you're my absolute favourite." I loved hearing those words. They made me feel like I was on top of the world. To my surprise and horror, one day when I was standing outside Nan's kitchen, Tegan and Josh arrived. They gave Nan a big hug, and my grandmother uttered these devastating words, "You two are my absolute favourites." Shattered, I knew I had to step up my game. I started making my bed, cleaning the house and doing everything I could to help Nan. Not long after Josh and Tegan left, those precious words came back to me. "You're my absolute favourite." I was back on top, number one kid. Fast forward 30 years, when Adam, Josh, Tegan and I were sitting at the Christmas table at Mum and Dad's, having a few beers while watching Nan dance around to some rock and roll music, when I turned to Adam and asked, "Did you know I was Nan's favourite when we were growing up?" Josh and Tegan, who were nearby, heard this and started laughing, along with Adam. We all told him, "Yeah, us too." I thought I'll settle this once and for all, so I called Nan over and I asked, "Nan, who was your favourite grandchild?" Nan laughed and said, "You're all my favourite. Love you boys all the same." Adam, Josh, Darcy and I were all very happy to share the title. That just left one question. If she loved us boys the same, where did Tegan fit? A question that will need never answering in our eyes. We love you, Nan, from all your number one grandkids. And this one's from myself. My memories are much the same as Adam and Davo. School holidays meant going to Nan's. And for me, a kid who got homesick staying at a friend's house 10 minutes up the road, I couldn't say goodbye to Mum and Dad quick enough. We'd be off to the movies, to the toy shops, to the water slides, making rumbles and always visiting people. On the quiet days, I'd break out the old vinyl records and just sit and listen. Crank it.
On the quiet days, I would break out the old vinyl records and just sit and listen and soak up the sun in the end of the room. I would crank up the Beach Boys and Nan would be dancing around the kitchen giving us a good laugh. We never went without Nan's, even when we were in trouble. On one particular day, Davo and myself were giving Nan grief, to the point she told Dad. And off to the bedroom we were sent not knowing the errors in our ways. Well, Nan must have felt bad because not long after that there was a tap on the window. Dave and I looked outside to see Nan telling us to quickly get out and be quiet. As we opened up the window, she handed us a bag of lollies. Don't tell your father. Absolutely spoilt rotten. One thing I could not go without mentioning is the red laser. Nan drove this thing like a rally car. Well, at least that's what it felt like. She would take us to the top deck of the car park, come to a stop, look at us and say, "Are you ready?" The giant grin on my face would indicate yes. She would give the laser a few quick revs, then shoot off down the car park, the wheels screeching all the way down. People would dart out of the way expecting to see some hoon, only to see a grey wave of soft curls and cackling kids zoom past. And heaven forbid if Nan saw cheap fuel on the other side of the highway. No one was safe across 2 lanes of traffic and pull in like it was a professional pit stop. Absolute classic times that I will always remember. Thanks, Nan.
Oh, Tegan. Sorry. Just collect myself. Yeah. Just couldn't do me out. Sorry. Yeah. Tegan, do you want me to read yours? Or? Yep. I was absolutely blessed to spend a lot of time with Nan growing up. Weekends filled with going to ballet practice and school holidays spent travelling around Victoria for competitions in her little red laser. It's absolutely true that red cars go faster. Nan proved this many times. Otherwise, in the early days, we'd be out shopping, going to see Lydia at Myer for her newest outfit recommendations, heading off to line dancing at the RSL, or on a bus trip to Melbourne, shopping with the girls. On quiet days, we'd picnic in the backyard and I'd feed my crust-herd dog Piggy, the one-eyed good boy. There would always be choc chip cookies, Anzac biscuits or truffles at Nan's house. Or my absolute favourite, she'd make hummingbird cake. She'd usually top this off with some extremely well-done chops and veg, or on a special occasion, a roast lamb, back from the shop from Shannon Ave. Not all of Nan's cooking was a success, however. She once decided to attempt making ginger beer and found out the hard way that it can definitely explode. The porch was lucky to survive. Elizabeth Street was always a safe, warm and loving place to be because Nan was there. The jacaranda tree where I'd sit for hours, or the apricot tree from which Nan and I would make loads of jam together. Every room was full of things to explore. She loved to keep and treasure items from all the special people to her. I implored her to throw out my baby teeth. It was a kind of gross thing to keep. I fear they are still in her crystal cabinet next to her miniature jug collection. I was so lucky to be able to share the things I love doing with Nan, especially that of travelling to Asia. From seeing her in the back of a BMO in Indonesia, on a rickety raft in Cambodia, to climbing aboard long-tail boats in Thailand. The best memory was in Sumatra, where she insisted on coming with Mum and I into the jungle to search for the rare Rafflesia flower, despite being 86 years old at the time. We found it. She also let me keep the $50 prize money from when I entered the photo of her from that adventure in a competition in the Woman's Day magazine without telling her. I'll miss all her stories, and I wish I could ask her to tell them one more time. I miss having a cuppa and a sweet together. I miss her hugs. And the scent of her tweed perfume.
I miss the scent of her tweed or panache perfume. I miss her randomly breaking out into song and dance, be it at home or in public. It was usually out in public. Farewell, Nan, you were so very loved. I'll leave this with a few of your sayings that I continue to remember fondly. A cup of tea for you and me. Ah, Robar, which she'd say after having said cup of tea. Blue and green should never be seen without a colour in between. And home, James, and don't spare the horses. Oh wait, one more. Don't forget to shut the gate, bugger the gate. That's how I learnt to swear. Thank you.
Hi, I'd like to share a couple anecdotes that are from my Aunt Lois, who was Thelma's sister. There are so many funny things, but I'll just give you these two, and thank you for bearing with me. Thel loved swing and jazz music. Her favourite record was Golden Wedding, performed by Glenn Miller, Benny Goodman and Gene Krupa. One day, Thel was playing her favourite record on her little record player when her dad said that the music was way too loud for inside. "Take it up the yard," Dad said. She did as she was asked, but was told that the music was still too loud, and that was a big block. In desperation, Thelma asked her younger sisters, Gwen and Lois, to grab some tea towels to muffle the sound. This didn't work, obviously, but anyway, always Lois said to say that they always had a great time with Thel. This second anecdote, Thelma and Louise at the MCG. This is now family legend. It's got a few versions, but I have the official one, trust me. One evening, Thelma and her sister Gwen went on a bus trip to an Andre Rieu concert at the MCG in Melbourne. After the show, the girls got a bit lost exiting the stadium and didn't make it back to their bus pickup point on time. After a lot of argument and frustration, meanwhile the bus had left for Geelong without them, and eventually Gwen and Thel were worried and desperate to get home. Somehow, I'm not sure about this part of the story, but they ended up being assisted by the police. After several radio calls and an intensive operation, the girls were bundled into the back of the divvy van and driven to meet their Geelong-bound bus. The bus had been instructed to pull over at a designated meeting point until Thel and Gwen arrived. Luckily, the boys and girls in blue came to the rescue with humour and great compassion. They nicknamed the girls Thelma and Louise and warned them to stay out of trouble. If I may, I would like to read you a short poem that my son Nathan and I wrote for Auntie Thelma, because we were trying to sum up the essence of Thelma, and I apologise for any repetition because a lot of the things we're saying and we remember are very much what you've already said. An Ode to Thelma. There was a succession of little cars, the Red Laser and a Mini to name a few. When spotted, the cavalry had arrived, this we knew. Sometimes this was to save the day, other times she would just stay and play. Markets, garage sales and shopping of all kinds, many a treasure and bargains among her finds. Over tea, sponge cakes and other delights, Thel and her visitors put the world to rights. Tea, cake and treats galore, you never left with room for more. For a short time, Thel's visitors, old and new, were greeted by her foul-mouthed cockatoo. There were other pets too, such as Bluey and Piggy, to name just a few. So many adventures in Oz and abroad, and antics to admire and applaud. With family and friends, countless celebrations. Her engagement with loved ones deserved congratulations. Despite the kerfuffles that caused some grief and strife, there was laughter and love aplenty in this big life. Through all the laughter and the tears, she faced it all and she ignored her fears. A sister, auntie, grandma, no matter the role, you were kind. This poem is for you, Thelma. You are a legend in our minds.
was a famous trumpet man from out Chicago way. He had a boogie style that no one else could play. He was the top man at his craft. But then his number came up and he was gone with the draft. He's in the army now, a blowin' reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. They made him blow a bugle for his Uncle Sam. It really brought him down because he couldn't jam. The captain seemed to understand, because the next day the cap went out and drafted a band. And now the company jumps when he plays reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. A toot, a toot, a toot-a-toot, a toot, he blows it eight to the bar. In boogie rhythm, he can't blow a note unless the bass and guitar is playing with him. He makes a company jump when he plays reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. He was a boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. And when he plays boogie-woogie bugle, he was busy as a bzzz bean. And when he plays, he makes the company jump eight to the bar. He's a boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. Do-do-do-do-da-da, do-da-da, do-do, he blows it eight to the bar. He can't blow a note if the bass and guitar isn't with him. And the company jumps when he plays reveille. He's a boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. Sleep with boogie every night and wakes them up the same way in the early bright. They clap their hands and stamp their feet because they know how he plays. When someone gives him a beat, he really breaks it up when he plays reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. Jumps when he plays reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B.
Now, some people find it really strange to applaud at a funeral, but, you know, we're not in a church with all of the sort of anachronistic, anyway, old-fashioned sort of things that went on there. And you have to remember that putting into words what it is that your parent or grandparent meant to you, and then to get up here and actually speak about it, is honestly one of the most difficult things anyone will ever do in their lives. And so it deserves at least a round of applause. So thank you so much to everybody who wrote something and who certainly had the strength and the courage to come up and speak. It's really very, very much appreciated. And you know, what about that life, honestly? It's just been the most brilliant testimony to a fabulous life, and so many amazing memories in there that will certainly keep Thelma in your hearts and minds forever. Because, you know, the one thing that can never be taken away from you, not even by death, are your memories. So your mum and Nan has left you with an incredible legacy. She definitely the blueprint of being an awesome grandparent. And you're all very darn lucky to have not only had her in your lives at all, but to have had her for so very long. So hold on to that and ensure that her legacy continues on through the generations. As we prepare now to say our final farewell, I'd like to leave you with the very comforting words of the 23rd Psalm. This was one of Thelma's favourite prayers. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me down to lie in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I think those themes of comfort and reassurance and God's provision for his people probably resonate with believers and perhaps even non-believers, and have done so really across the ages. But now we do come to the sad task of saying goodbye. But do not despair, because it is simply Thelma's earthly remains to which we're saying goodbye. Not her spirit, not her love, not her essence, or those fabulous memories. For they will remain forever in your hearts and minds as long as there's still one single one of you left to remember her. Samuel Butler is quoted as saying, I fall asleep in the full and certain hope that my slumber shall not be broken, and that, though I be all forgetting, yet shall I not be forgotten, but continue that life through the thoughts and deeds of those I have loved. Dearest Thelma, your life we have honoured, and your absence we sadly acknowledge. Your memories will be treasured always. We are all incredibly saddened at your passing, but it is certainly with immense gratitude and thanksgiving that we acknowledge the privilege and pleasure of having shared in at least a part of your life's journey. So as we now prepare to say our final farewell, can I ask those who feel able to please now stand? As our final tribute to Thel, feel free to join in with me as I recite another of her favourite prayers, the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, for ever and ever. Amen. But now, dear Thel, we must release you and let you go. But before we do, as per your wish, I beseech everyone here to please enact the words of our final song with verve and with vigour, because I'm telling you, she will be watching. But our dearest wish for now is that, though you have already been reunited with your beloved Bob, your parents and siblings, and that you got the biggest thrill of your life when you bumped into your precious daughter, Gail. Since your family protected you from the painful news of her passing for almost 2 years, seeing her there in the hereafter quite possibly would have prompted something from you along the lines of, what on earth are you doing here? But it brings us tremendous solace to know that the three of you are now together again. And so it is that, in harmony and with love, we bid you farewell, as you do indeed now rest eternally with those treasured loved ones in deep and abiding peace.
Me luck